What's going on, everybody? This is Jackie Luqman.
And I am Baba Luqman.
And welcome to another edition of Live and Coffee, Current Events and Politics in Luqman Nation.
Always the most dangerous show on social media anywhere, and it's been proven.
Has it?
Yeah, it has been proven.
There have been scientific studies.
I don't know about all that, but I know it's been proven. Because I'm always keeping my ear to the ground.
You are.
Yeah.
You do. You absolutely do. So, listen, folks. Today is July 26th, 2020. It is Sunday. We're a little bit behind schedule. We apologize for that. But we had to go see some of our people today. A member of our family who is extremely, extremely dear to us, our Uncle Junie, his birthday is today. And this is really important because Uncle Junie is probably like 76 years old.
Yeah, I figured it was up there.
Yeah, he's almost 80. He's around the same age as my dad. My dad is pretty much exactly 20 years older than I am. I think Uncle Junie is a little bit older than my dad. Got him by a couple of years. It's around the same age as my mom. A few years older than she was. So, I mean, even though we've been very careful, we have been very careful to not do a lot. We haven't done any socializing.
Right.
When we have gone out to protest, we've made sure we have our masks. We've made sure that we have our hand sanitizer. Yep. We haven't been touching people. We've been coming back in and being really careful about taking our shoes off and, showering and all this kind of stuff. And we really weren't going to go today. But Uncle Junie is 76 years old.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. I mean, and also, this time of COVID and stuff, it's really been stressful for a lot of us, even when we was leaving today, we saw people with the grills and everything out. Now, because in D.C., now there's a mandatory mask wearing in D.C. right now. Right,
with $1,000 fine if you violate the mask order.
That's right. So, and we told you on the show that because Americans haven't been really taking this COVID-19 pandemic seriously, since we couldn't be trusted, as a population, to do the right thing and to basically do practice our social responsibility to one another. Now, as always, the government has to come in and force us to do it, and so that's what we see, because DC is not the only place. We're seeing this taking place all through the South. I think it's like they said, 32, 34 states already are putting in place mandatory measures in order to combat this pandemic. And they have to do it. We're talking about now, we're still in the first wave, and we're talking about the possibility of shutting down the whole economy once again. Florida had 9,000 COVID-19 infections in just the last 24 hours. New infections. New infections, right? New infections. It's going to be like zombie land down there.
It's crazy that like we feel really messed up saying that any state government or city has to impose these mask regulations, because it unfortunately shifts the focus on whether individual people are wearing masks or are not wearing masks.
Right.
It shifts the responsibility of dealing with this pandemic to individual behavior, as opposed to looking at what the state did not do to protect and prepare the people. Because it's one thing for the state to issue a mandatory order because people have been selfish and ridiculous and ignorant and honestly just hateful and selfish and have not worn masks and have spread the virus. Now, when we went out today, we had masks on. We had our little, Uncle Junie had his little celebration outside. We're outside people anyway, so that's kind of what we do, right? We're just kind of cookout outside kind of folks, right? So everybody's outside. Everybody is making sure that they're, distant enough of a distance away from each other. Everybody had masks. Everybody, there's a big old bottle of hand sanitizer in the middle of the table. So we wanted to get together, but we were, and we didn't stay long, right? So we wanted to get together, but we made sure that we were safe. But we know there have been plenty of people who have not done that.
Right.
And while I am angry at those people because they are selfish, hateful people who just want to be oppressed so bad that they have turned wearing a mask into some type of government overreach, when really it's just being careful of your health and being mindful of other people's health. The problem is that the reason we are facing, the real reason we're facing the health crisis that we are in this country, with like what you just said, states having to shut down again, looking at shutting down again, the capacity of all the hospitals, I think in the state of Florida or Georgia, was at 137%. Yeah. All of the hospitals, all of the ICU units in the entire state are full because of this new spread of this virus. But this is more the responsibility of the government that has not provided for the people, that didn't protect the people in the first place by giving the people information when they had it.
Right.
Instead, remember we talked about the politicians who they got the information from their briefings and they went and sold off a bunch of their stock because they saw this economic issue coming, right? They didn't provide PPE for the people. They didn't shore up the hospital infrastructure to prepare for this. So the state didn't do anything that it needed to do to prepare the people for this emergency. And this is in addition to the state just being crappy and taking care of the people in this country in the first place. So, I mean, yeah, these mask orders, we think they have to be issued. Yeah, we do. But the problem with that is there has to be enforcement that comes with it.
Right.
And the enforcement is never fair. It's never implemented justly. The laws are never implemented justly. They will not be applied justly. The punishment ain't gonna be just. We know this. But I mean that's the situation we're in. But something else we noticed too.
What's that?
The way that this virus is causing additional stress for our people in particular.
Yes.
Like we went to Dollar Tree to grab a soda to take to the cookout. And we noticed, as usual, we're seeing this more and more. And we couldn't really figure out like what it was. Part of it is just like this is just how they treat us in the hood, right?
Right.
We're in Dollar Tree, and any day you go into Dollar Tree, the line is like nearly to the back wall of the store. Not enough people behind the ringing up stuff. It's just, and this was before. Understand, this was before the pandemic, right? This was just the level of customer service at your average store. Grocery store, Dollar Tree, didn't matter. In the hood, we're just conditioned to wait. We really are. We're conditioned to live through bad service. We're conditioned to wait. That's just, we go to a store in a situation like that in a wealthier, whiter neighborhood, and what happens? The manager peeks out and is like, oh, there's a big line. Sally the cashier number 4. Sally to register number 4 so she can open register number 4 so we can get the people out of the line because we don't want to inconvenience the shoppers.
Right.
Nobody cares that they inconvenience poor people in the hood. That's just, we understand that. But we started noticing this and we noticed today that a lot of the people who were in line were full out buying all of their groceries at Dollar Tree. Right. And we talked about that a little bit in the store. And how did that make you feel? What did you think about that?
Well, I mean, it's not the first time we saw it. I mean, we've made this observation before. And the fact that, we live in a community where people live not only paycheck to paycheck, those who can still make a paycheck, but we also live in a community where most people, I say maybe like almost 50%, maybe even more than that, live off of government assistance. So we talk about the first of the month, and a large part of our community have to depend on government welfare, food stamps, whatever you want. I mean, I don't stigmatize it because I feel like That's the least that we should be getting for our troubles and toil in this country. But I mean, this is a real thing for people that they have to wait month to month, and so because the way that food prices are in our community, the fact that the average, if you're a single person in this country and you're on food stamps, the average person gets $190 a month.
Right.
Right. It used to be $200 when Obama was there, but then they cut it back, so it's $190 a month. You could easily in some of the grocery stores or supermarkets we have around here, half of a shopping cart would be almost that.
Yeah.
And God forbid you got children.
Oh my God.
And this is why, Jackie, you and I have always made the case about those of us on the left who like to shame people for not making the right food choices. For a lot of people, that's just not a luxury. Right. You and I have been in supermarkets where we seen mothers with small children have to rely on boxed foods. They have to. Mm-hmm. They have to. It's just the way it is. And so now, because of the way that the food prices have become, so now you go to Dollar Tree, Family Dollar, all these dollar stores.
Yeah, Dollar General, and yeah.
That's right. And so what's happening is that those are like the last bastions of affordability in our communities. So you have people who they have no choice. They can't shop at a Giant. They can't shop at a Safeway. So they have to make this, if you're single, $190 a month food stamps. If you got kids, maybe you get $400 or $500, but that has to last you a month. And we're talking about children, and we're talking about in the age of COVID where the kids are staying home now. Mm-hmm. They're not even being taken care of by the school lunches and the school meals because schools aren't open. Mm-hmm. So now that means that you have to cook even more meals because your children are home. And so, and you got these clowns in Washington, D.C., who are sitting in there talking about these millionaire clowns in government that's sitting there debating whether they should extend the unemployment, which expires this weekend, whether they should extend the unemployment, the $600 relief, unemployment relief, whether they should pass another stimulus package. Now this is the thing that gets me. You and I see in real time that that these Family Dollar stores and these are the last bastions, as I stated earlier, of affordability for poor people. Mm-hmm. Now, if Family Dollar and them ever decide that it's not profitable for them anymore to to have these prices the way that they are, then where do these people turn to?
Right.
So you got these again, the Mitch McConnells and all of these rich clowns who don't have to worry. They're not confronted with these choices.
Right.
So, but they're sitting up here saying that, well, if we extend it the $600, then the people aren't going to want to go back to work because, and this is a sad commentary on our society, is the fact that they're admitting that people are underpaid.
Right.
They're admitting that employment in this country is not a vehicle for social mobility. They admit that. Mm-hmm. Because you're going to get more from us than you get from your job, so then that means you're not going to want to go back to work. I mean, that's sad. And then to sit back and say, well, we'll pass something, but you won't get the $600. What you're going to get is we're going to leave 70% of what you used to earn. So on average, you're talking about people getting $200 less.
Right.
From unemployment benefits. Here you got a pending, which has already started, a pending eviction tsunami that's about to come.
Yep.
You're talking about people who can't afford to pay their light bills because none of this stuff stopped. And in D.C., folks, just to let you know, we have a city government who has the autonomy, at least that, to stop evictions,
right,
and to halt rent, and they won't do it.
And they won't do it. They have issued a moratorium on evictions, but they have not just said rent is suspended, evictions, nobody's gonna evict. They have the power to do it. They just won't.
Now, mind you, now this is a city who made millions and millions of dollars just off of traffic cams, who made millions of dollars off of the speed cams. They got so much money they don't even know what to do with it. But what they did do, and let's put it out there, what they did do with the surplus money that they made off of all the speed cameras and all of the other cameras that they got, which were millions and millions of dollars, what they did do was they gave tax breaks to the businesses in the district.
Right. There's the businesses got a tax break.
They got a tax break. Yeah.
And you know what? Maryland and Virginia are in on it too, because Amazon is building a distribution center, I think, in Maryland,
Upper Marlboro.
In Upper Marlboro, just right across the line over, literally 10 minutes from where we live, maybe 10, 15 minutes up 395 from where we live. Amazon ain't paying no taxes. Jeff Bezos is not going to pay a dime in taxes to Upper Marlboro, Maryland.
Right.
So the people who work at Amazon are going to be paid a little bit of money. Jeff Bezos is going to make a whole heck of a lot of money. And nobody who lives in that community is going to get the benefit of the tax revenue that Bezos should be paying to build his distribute. But we are sitting here, we got folks on the left, like you said, sitting here shaming folks, and we thought about this because we were listening to a show on Sputnik International.
Oh yeah.
Where this lady was talking to this nutritionist about, how evil sugar is, and sugar is just evil, and why are people still eating sugar, and why aren't we regulating people eating sugar? And the nutritionist said something I had not heard a nutritionist say. I was so happy to hear her say it. She said, now listen, I enjoy a little bit of sugar in my diet. Not a lot, but a little bit. And she said, but you have to understand, people enjoy eating. And even people who are poor, enjoying a meal is like the last bit of enjoyment that they can actually afford. So you don't want to take the joy out of the one thing people have that is accessible to a lot of people.
Right.
People like the taste of sugar. Tastes good. Makes them happy.
Right.
Makes them feel good. So, the little lefty hostess, the
little lefty tyrant.
Yes, the little. Come on, let's call it what it is. The little lefty food tyrant. Well, I mean, how do you control people? Something like, how do you control people's desire for just having a little bit of sugar, as opposed to people becoming addicted to sugar? So basically, she wants to regulate what people eat. But these kinds of people who have this opinion that we need to be regulating what people put in their mouths now, and I'm not talking about Republicans, again, I'm talking about these folks who claim to be on the left. They're so concerned with the diets of poor people, but they are ignoring the fact that the people who have no choice but to eat the most highly processed foods eat those foods because those are the foods they can afford.
Exactly. It's all about affordability.
It's all about Yes, we are trying to do better with sustainable farming. We're trying to grow the community farm model. Yes, we're working on that. But in the meantime, people got to eat.
Right.
People's kids are hungry. And these folks cannot wait for us to get our food distribution chain from our community farms together, because their kids need to eat tonight.
Exactly.
So they are in line at the Dollar Tree getting all their groceries from the Dollar Tree because the food is cheap. Now, there are some frozen vegetables and some good stuff that you can find in Dollar Tree and the dollar store. But we know a lot of that stuff is boxed, it's canned, it's in jars because it lasts long.
Right.
So they have to feed their families. And we have to be really careful on the left. We got to be real careful. I understand it's really hard not to do it, because we find ourselves kind of sliding. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later, how we do kind of find ourselves sliding into these right-sounding arguments about left issues. That's real tricky, and we got to be careful. Mm-hmm. But we have to be honest about the material conditions of our people.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we did an interview this weekend with, you got to remind...
Left POC, the Left POC podcast.
Right. A delightful interview. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. But one of the things that we were asked was, what did we see as one of the major issues with the left, with the so-called left, I should say, because the left, it's a broad thing, but there's, you know what I mean, but with the so-called left. And one of the things that I at least mentioned is this intolerance, this intolerance of the choices that people make. We sit back and we used to ridicule, the so-called left would sit back and condemn people on the right for wanting to control a woman's body, with abortion, with respect to abortion, with the school choice thing, and all of the pet issues of the right, where they say, oh well, why do you want to control this part of someone's life, right. whether gay and lesbian people or LGBTQ people could get married, the marriage issue, equality, all of these pet issues of the right, and we like, come on, why would you want to police the individual choices people make? But then find out on the left, we do the same thing. Right. And see, the only thing of it is we're cool with those issues. We're progressive when it comes to the issues that the right is against. Mm-hmm. But then when it comes to our own pet issues, then all of a sudden we're not so tolerant. Right. So now all of a sudden now it's like, well, why is it that your kids are drinking Kool-Aid when it has all this sugar in it? Yeah. Or why is it that you're not learning how to have a sustainable farm? Why is it this and why isn't that? Or and or why are you eating all this meat and everything like that? Right. And so what happened? And not that these aren't important issues. They are important issues. But the thing of it is the fact that one of the things that, and you have mentioned this, Jackie, one of the things is the fact that there are issues that in a perfect world we would love to solve. Then there are issues in the real world that take precedence over the issues we would like to solve.
That's it right there. That's it right there. We recognize that there is a whole plethora of issues that need to be addressed on the scale of human suffering in this world, and definitely in this country. But honestly, y'all, we have said it before and we're going to keep saying it. What you decide to put on your plate is honestly not high on that list for us right now. Now, you can do what you want, but we're just saying, when you come over here in Luqman Nation and we say, oh, we threw some steaks on the grill, keep your opinions on that to yourself, because that's not your fight. That's not our fight. But we can talk about justice and liberation and for our people. But look, unless you're going to buy people's groceries, no.
It's going to be hard to tell that woman we see in Family Dollar who has to stretch $400 or $500 of food stamps between 4, 5, 6 kids and herself, and maybe a couple of relatives who she might have to take care of too, because that's a real issue in our community too, is that because when people lose their jobs and they don't have nowhere to stay, then all of a sudden is, can I come stay with you? Right. And now, because a lot of government buildings are closed, you just can't get food stamps like that anymore. Exactly. So even if these people who have lost their jobs and need assistance, they have to wait because a lot of the government offices are closed, so so you don't get the expedited food stamps now. So now somebody has to look out for them. Right. So you go and you look at that mother who has the kids, who has the brother who lost his job, right. and maybe had to use his last paycheck or two to help her pay the rent. These are real issues, and so now all of a sudden, now that $400 or $500 have to stretch to include him, and the schools are closed, so now the kids are eating up more of the food now, and all of this other kind of stuff. So now, the last thing this woman wants to hear is
why are you feeding your kids all this sugar?
Right? Why are you why are your kids eating this and why are your kids eating that? So this is a real issue. So I mean, but again. we have to. We should look at how long. It's not easy to change the habits and behaviors of people. It took decades for people to realize that smoking is bad.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to sit back. We done it recently. We sat back and watched old talk shows on YouTube where people just sitting around the table being interviewed and
just puffing away.
Yeah. I mean, sitting in the restaurants and everything while they're having dinner, and they just bring it out. And, now it seems like now that world doesn't exist anymore. But it didn't happen overnight. Mm-hmm. It took decades for the population to be educated about the harmful effects of smoking cigarettes. Right. So now you don't see cigarette commercials anymore. Nope. There's the Marlboro Man and Faded and Joe Camel and all them and that. So and then let's look at another issue. There was a time when there was this big ass hole in the ozone that was caused by these aerosol sprays and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And they scared the hell out of you about that.
Yeah, they did.
But what happened was there was a sustained campaign of educating the public about, and not just the public, but industry, about the harmful effects of these. I don't know the scientific name of them, but the harmful effects of these aerosols and all the stuff that were severely affecting the ozone layer. So what happened? People started to pay attention. People started to respond to the education they were getting. And then guess what? Mother Earth healed the hole. Yep. So now that hole doesn't exist anymore. Right. Now we got climate change. So what I'm saying is the fact that, yes, we need to educate because like Jack and I said, it's not that these issues aren't important. I'm not going to sit here and say that the deforestation that goes with raising cattle and all this stuff, yes, all of these things are connected. The problem of it is the fact that it doesn't, that there, like I said, we have to prioritize our issues. We can still educate the public at the same time, making sure that mother of 4 or 5 can be able to afford groceries from a Whole Foods. Because see, one of the things that we don't like to talk about, Jackie, is that a lot of us who had the means or who has the means to go to Whole Foods and stuff, we weren't too concerned about the mother that was shopping at Family Dollar. So you see, nobody thought about the food deserts in the communities we live at. Right. So nobody really paid attention to it. Oh yeah, every now and then, there might be a story here, or every now and then people like us might mention it, and and we'll put it on our page, and it gets one sad face because really that's not your concern, because Whole Foods is up the street. You can afford Whole Foods. You don't live in a food desert. So a lot of these things aren't your issue. So what it is now is the fact that the people we live around that we saw today, it's their issue. Right. So one of the things that we have to do if we are going to want people to respond to all of these pet issues is, first of all, we have to make sure that their quality of life is at a point where they, first of all, ain't going to go hungry by following your pet issue. Right. And then at the same time, we have to be able to do economic justice, social justice, and then once people, this is just the way people are. Once people can breathe and realize that they're backing against the wall. Okay, now, so what was that you were saying?
Yeah, what were you saying about gardening and nutrition now that we've addressed the issue of racial injustice, that's never going to entirely go away, but we've moved the needle some. You know what we're saying? Right. So yeah, we're just really mindful of that as we were out. We've got to prioritize our struggles, and 2 issues that are at the top of the priorities for us in Luqman Nation, the ongoing protests and the way the media is covering some of the protests that are going on in places like Portland, as opposed to what we've been doing out in these streets all our whole little lives, and this NFAC, the Not Fucking Around Coalition, right? Which is a black militia that had a demonstration in Louisville this past weekend. These are 2 issues, not necessarily on the surface what you're thinking, but in order to find out what it is we are thinking, you have to hang on for a minute, because we're going to take a little break. we hope you like this piece of music. We found this on YouTube. We love African music. It is just great. This is traditional African Nigerian music of the Yoruba tribe. So we're going to take a little break. We're going to leave you with some of this music, and we will be right back.
Well, welcome back to... Oh, did I jump the gun? I did.
That's okay.
Well, welcome back to Coffee, Current Events, and Politics, Luqman, Nation, the most dangerous show on social media anywhere.
Yes.
Just as a reminder, please share the stream. Invite your friends.
Share.
Also, click the notification button so that you would know when we will stream live again. And also, we are also on YouTube. So if you haven't, subscribe to us on YouTube. And if you like what you see here or what you hear here, and if you love that smile, consider becoming a Patreon and help us to spread this message as we can. So now that we've gotten all the whoring out of the way,
I put on my nice dress for it.
So now we're going to get into, this is another thing. I remember you brought this to me because I was following some other stuff. And actually because I had to take a break for a while, and I was like, and then you came to me, you said, these moms in Portland, came out there, and I was like, the moms, what's happening? Oh, they've been brutalized. This is called the Wall of Moms.
Yeah.
Right? The Wall of Moms. And so I had to look that up. I said, the Wall of Moms. And, Portland has just basically been the 21st century Bunker Hill. That's the way that it's been, kind of been, classified. It's 21st century Bunker Hill. And so anyway, but what we've been seeing, and these moms are courageous. Let me just start this out now. These moms went out there. They're courageous. I think some veterans came out there, and to meet the brutality of the federal troops that Trump sent. And so these people are putting it. So we don't want to make light of that. We don't want to minimize that. People have actually gotten hurt through these things,
right?
And so we don't want. But what we have noticed is that the media, once again, the media, once again, is basically really doing what it does, at least what it's been doing with respect to these overall protests. Mm-hmm. And we see the biases, we see the cultural biases, we see the racial biases. And so we see how, again, this narrative of what's being stitched together around these wall of moms.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, we have to understand the demographics of Portland, Oregon, right? Because Portland, Oregon is a very, very, very incredibly white city. And there's a reason for that. Oregon is an intentionally very white state. There is, and I think I uploaded this monologue to our Patreon page, but if I didn't, I have to do it this week. You have to understand the history of Oregon. Oregon, I think, is the only state in the country in which the Constitution of the state was written to intentionally exclude non-white people from settling in the state. In the, in the early
territory,
in the early 1800s, and definitely after the Civil War, it was written into the Constitution of Oregon that black people could not live in Oregon, couldn't own land, couldn't settle there, couldn't live there, and that stayed on the books until 1970 something. It just ridiculously long period of time where that piece of garbage stayed in the Constitution, and so you have a legally legally mandated demographic of the state, the entire state. Right. So where black people just didn't move to Oregon because legally they could not, and if they did, they were met with a lot of violent racist repression for decades, centuries. So there's a reason why the population of Oregon as a state, and certainly Portland, is 2% black, African American. So of course most of the people who are protesting in Portland are going to be white people. That just demographically, that's just true. So that's not my issue. Good for them. Cool. Thank you. It's about damn time. You understand what I'm saying? It's how long have we been, good grief, how long have we been protesting? Our people, our ancestors, their people, their ancestors. How many centuries have we been doing this? And not to say that there have not been white people who have not joined the struggle before now, but it's really good to see that the groundswell of support that is happening now. But here's where the problem lies. There's been so much celebration, and I remember a couple weeks ago somebody tweeted something about the moms that are out there. Oh, now the moms have joined the fight. And the first thing I said was, the fuck you mean now the moms have joined the fight? What you talking about? Because our mamas been out there. Right. Do you understand what I'm saying? Ferguson. We're not talking about now. Right. We're not talking about this iteration of protest. We're talking about, when was Ferguson? 2015? Baltimore. We went to Baltimore. We saw the black mamas. And y'all are excited about, now the dads have come out with the leaf blowers. Well, our daddies didn't come out with leaf blowers, but our daddies came out holding their babies on their shoulders, side by side, in the streets with the mamas, with our mamas, marching, protesting, demanding justice for the lives of our babies. Oh, you excited about the vets that have come out now? Oh, now the vets have come. Our people who have been in the military, we work with people. Right. And now that I think about it, 2 or 3 of the people we work with, who we're in community and organization with, are military veterans. So we've been in this fight. So it's are y'all serious now? Are y'all really serious with this? Ooh, now the moms have joined the fight. Whose mama? Your mama? Because our mom's been in this fight. And I don't remember our mamas and our daddies and our veterans and our young soldiers, out there getting the kind of love and respect and admiration and, oh my God, they're so badass. Because see, Ferguson, I remember some folks on my timeline. Well, why do they have to be so violent? Why do they have to antagonize the police?
Right.
If they would just protest peacefully, maybe the police would not, be so confrontational and aggressive with them. I remember some people saying that. And having to get with those folks.
Right.
Then in 2015 and before then. I remember Tamir Rice. Zimmerman?
Trayvon
Martin. I had to get with folks who were always questioning the motives, the actions, the talking about, maybe, they shouldn't be so angry. Maybe if they were just more peaceful, maybe the police wouldn't shoot tear gas at them. If they were more peaceful, if they didn't destroy property, maybe the police wouldn't be out there with militarized vehicles. This was 2013, 2014, 2015, and it was before then where we have had to defend the righteous anger of our mamas and our daddies and our veterans and our soldiers out in these streets demanding justice for our babies' lives. But all of a sudden, the white folks, the white ladies and the white daddies and the white veterans in Portland come out because the police are finally, how many times have we said this in Luqman Nation? The police are finally doing to you what many of you did not care that they were doing to us. See, you didn't care that they were brutalizing our mamas and our daddies and our veterans in Ferguson, in Baltimore, in St. Louis. You didn't care that they were pointing military tanks with sniper rifles at our kids, protesting against another extrajudicial killing of a black child, a black woman, a black man. People thought, it doesn't take all that. I mean, but see, now that the gun is turned on people who look like some of you, now you understand the terror that just sits on top of that rage at the system that is brutalizing the life of our mamas, our daddies, our veterans, our babies. And when we stand up for justice, demanding justice, exercising our so-called constitutional rights, we get tanks pointed at us, but then we also get the anger of the white American public pointed at us. But see, now that that's happening to you, now all your folks are brave. And it's kind of hard for us who've been in this struggle, hun. And we've been wondering, how are people not seeing the wrong in the way we are being treated? And now all of a sudden that the white ladies in Portland are getting tear gas, now everybody gets it. It's like, come on. I hate to put it that way, but you know what? I'm not the only one who recognizes that there's a problem with that. We're not the only ones, because, hey, guess what? The Wall of Moms recognizes it's a problem too. This is the actual webpage of, I did not know that they have an organization. I think it's kind of cool, I guess. And again, I don't want people to think like, oh my God, Jackie's pooping on the moms in Portland. No, I'm not pooping on the moms. Honestly, y'all, big up, for real. Absolutely, do your thing. Yeah, get out there and stand those fascist forces down, because that's what we've been doing.
Well, I think we have a comment over here on Facebook, and I agree from Robert. I won't say his last name, but Robert said the real issue is the media and not the people protesting. I agree. I mean, look, before there was the Wall of Moms, there was the Million Mom March.
Right.
So let's deal with that. There was the Million Mom March. There was a bunch of moms who went down to Washington, D.C. to protest not only police brutality, but also a whole bunch of other related issues.
Right.
So there was the Million Mom March. Didn't garner much attention. Didn't garner the type of media coverage that the Wall of Moms are getting like that. And then after that, after the Million Mom March, then we had, which I thought was a shameful display of exploitation, but you had Hillary Clinton with, the mothers of the movement.
Right.
That
was a shameful display of exploitation.
Yeah, so you had, these women who tragically lost their sons, mainly, their children to police violence. Hillary Clinton was using them as window dressing, in my opinion. In order to whatever she thought she was trying to achieve with it, But once again, there was not this serious attention paid by the press. It wasn't this serious attention or examination about the trauma that that the mothers of the movement. Why they were there. Why are they the mothers of the movement?
Right.
What qualified them to be the mothers of the movement? So it wasn't that kind of examination. It was the type of attitude that we've seen so often in this country, is the fact that black life, that we have become desensitized to black trauma, black pain, black death, black murder. So when you have black women who have lost their children due to violence, whether it's violence from the police or whether it's violence from within their own community. What happens is that we go, oh, well, that just happens to them.
Right.
We're just used to black people suffering. We're used to black people dying.
And so are they.
Yeah, we're used to black people being murdered and all this stuff. And so what happens is that it doesn't become news anymore.
Right.
And it's not news, so you have that there, but I think the other part of it is what we're seeing is something that we've been trying to tell white people for the longest time. They don't listen to us, but if you got out there, if you got on the front lines, you're going to be able to get the type of attention we can never get in this country. Right. We have never gotten in this country. And that has and what I see with these wall of moms is this is proving that case. What's proving the case is that, first of all, it proves why we have to keep saying Black Lives Matter. Because the wall of moms, and like I said, it's not their fault. I commend these women. But the way that society, the way that the media, the way that we have been socialized to view these things has been to the point that, the white moms, they're out there. Now that means something. Right. Yeah, now that means something, because the white moms are out there. They're mad. They're pissed off. And look, and oh my God, look at how the federal forces did them. But yet I can recall black women beat in the head of trying to cross. We just buried John Lewis. And so you can look at that footage even today and see the brutality of the state towards black women while they were down on the ground being beat. We could talk about instances of state violence and the death of black women recently or in the past couple of years. A black woman being pummeled by a California Highway Patrol officer some years back while other people, instead of helping the woman, to help the cop. Right. So we see where we have to constantly say that our lives matter. And, we have to say that is because time and time again, these incidences show us why we have to say that. Now the moms are out there. Now it matters. Now the veterans came out there to protect the moms. Now it matters.
Now it matters.
Right. So you have the mayor of Portland go out there and get gassed. Now it matters.
Even though he's the one who unleashed the cops on the protesters in the first place.
All right. Okay, fine. But now it matters. You know what I mean? So the point being is the fact that, nothing mattered with the Million Mom March. Nothing mattered. Hillary Clinton couldn't even win the presidency with the mothers of the because again we have to, and this is one of the things that we spoke about in when we were doing the interview. One of the things we have to talk about is still, even on the left, but we still have to deal with this this bias that we have towards dealing with black people in particular. We still have a problem, and so again, as Robert said, and I agree with him wholeheartedly, the media plays these things out like that. The media could have gave as much attention to the Million Mom March as it did to the Wall of Moms. The media could have gave just as much attention, or even more so, to the and examined in a critical way, in a more humane way, of why these women with Hillary Clinton, what did they done to qualify to be mothers of the movement? What qualified them for that? But the media didn't ask these questions.
Right.
They didn't ask these questions. It was like, oh, well, yeah, they lost their kids to police gun violence, and they're black kids, so they don't really care. They don't really matter.
Right. The only reason they're important is because they're endorsing Hillary Clinton, so the rest of you black folks can better vote for Hillary.
And, Black Lives Matter, they're just, they're out there, talking loud and saying nothing, and they're defending criminals like Mike Brown, and they're out there, and so, and all lives matter anyway, so these are the things that the reason why in our long attempts to be heard in this country is one of the reasons why we can't be heard as much as we would like to, is because of these biases, because it takes white faces and white bodies in order to get people to, and it's frustrating, and and it's frustrating to realize that my humanity is based upon, or the state recognizing my humanity is based upon whether white people agree that it should be recognized.
Yeah. And I mean, to their credit, the women who are involved in this group, the Wall of Moms, now I don't know how official they are. We're just showing you what's on their page and their press release. They say in their statement, and I thought this was pretty cool, while we started with the heart-centered and courageous goal of bringing mothers together to stand against fascism, racism, and authoritarianism, we quickly found ourselves in a problematic but predictable place. Too many of our group admins were white women. Realizing this was problematic, we reached out to Teresa Rayford and Don't Shoot Portland PDX, who have long been doing the work in regard to addressing systemic racism and fighting for social change. Through the relationship we built with Don't Shoot, we quickly realized that there's no context where white or non-black women should be leading a group whose goal is liberation and justice for black people. So they get this.
Right.
They get it.
Thank God, too.
Thank God this group of women get it, and they have reached out to some black folks who have decided to be in community with them. And when we say be in community with people, we're just saying we're working with people. Mm-hmm. We work with you. We're going to struggle with you on this. And we recognize you're sincere. We're going to struggle with you on this, and we're going to get somewhere together. So we applaud them for this, but be real careful. I want to show you this article that kind of undergirded this conversation that we're having about them. The Wall of Moms is not the story. Black moms have been in this fight for years. It's on the Lily, and the subtitle is, by focusing on these white women, publications are erasing an already invisible group, and that's black women. I mean, we have, there's a whole lot of different conversations to be had in this issue, but for tonight's topic, we're going to leave you with this. We appreciate everyone who comes out and struggles with us. Do you understand? We don't need you to lead us. You need to organize your people. You certainly need to politically educate your people, but we don't need other folks to be the face of our liberation.
Right.
That's real dangerous. And we're not saying that they are doing this, because clearly this group, the Wall of Moms, has recognized that. And I love how they said that they found themselves in a predictable situation again, because even they recognize that this happens all the time.
It happens all the time.
White people, why we always they literally basically said, why we always co-opting black folks stuff? Let's not do that anymore.
Right.
So, that this is, we have to be real careful. Just like when we struggle with our Latinx brothers and sisters, when we struggle with our Native brothers and sisters, we don't go in and say, well, look, this is what we are doing on behalf of the Native community. No, we step back as much as we can and ask, where do you want us? What do you want us to do?
That is the proper. That's the proper way of being an ally.
Yeah, we are at your disposal. What would you have us do? Because if we let the media, let other people tell our story,
right,
the story is never going to be what we want it to be.
Right, and let other people, and if we allow the media to choose who our leaders are supposed to be.
Right.
You know, choose who's supposed to represent us, which they do so often.
All the time. And I like what you said a few minutes ago, hun, where you said that we can't be heard unless it's white people out there speaking for us, because so many other white people will not hear what we have to say unless a white person is a mouthpiece for us. And that's y'all's problem. Y'all need to work that out. I don't know. We can't help you with that. But the other part of that is a lot of times we can't be heard unless we do something provocative.
Well, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that leads us to our next story. And I know some of you have been waiting to talk about this. Look here. The NFAC, the Not Fucking Around Coalition. We've been talking about them for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we have.
Right?
Yeah.
And because, look, if
well, I mean, ever since their grand display around July 4th
and the
weekend.
July 4th weekend at Stone Mountain, which, listen, I'm going to keep saying that was appropriate. And okay, so this is the struggle that we have, right? I think at the very beginning of this discussion, I feel like I need to say this. I hate it that people are calling all of these protests Black Lives Matter protests. I hate that. I absolutely hate it. Not because I have anything entirely personal against Black Lives Matter. I mean, I do have a problem with that they're not as, radical as we are. I do have a problem with some of their political, the way they want to go about some political things.
The narrowness of their the narrowness of their goals also.
Yeah, but that does not discredit them to me as an organization, the organization as it were, that has some validity in this moment. I'm going to give them the credit they're due. But all of these protests around the country and around the world, can we stop calling every protest that black people are in a Black Lives Matter protest? Because all of us ain't Black Lives Matter. Do you understand? What we have been engaged in around the world and around the country and around the world is the ongoing struggle for black liberation. So I would really love it. I just really would love it if people would stop calling. And again, I understand that this is the media.
It is the media.
This is what the media does, and they do this in order to delegitimize Black Lives Matter, the organization, Black Lives Matter, the movement, the loose movement, and all of these protests. So, but I would really love it if freedom-minded people would stop calling every protest that black folk do Black Lives Matter protests, because that's just silly. It's just ridiculous. I know that's probably the first thing you think of because that's the way the media has told you to think of these things, but our people are involved in black liberation struggle, a protracted, centuries-long struggle for the liberation of black people. And if you can't call them black liberation protests, then just call them protests. But good grief, stop calling them Black Lives Matter protests. Okay, that's out the way.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you for indulging me. So we've been talking about this black militia, and we've had some interesting conversations about whether we agree with them, whether we don't agree with them, and I kind of feel like that's not like the point. Whether we agree with what they do or have done or not, I feel like that's not the point.
Okay.
Because I feel like there are a couple of things at play here that we need to pay attention to. I feel like...
Well, I mean, first of all, this guy, what's his name, Grandmaster Jay, right? Because I mean, a lot of folks don't know who this guy is,
right?
So Grandmaster Jay, he's been a fixture somewhere for a while. He was in hip hop for a while.
Oh, he was?
Yeah, based in New York.
Okay.
He's built a name for himself in different other areas, other genres. And then now he's reinvented himself as the leader of this NFAC militia, right? So, but the reason why I'm interjecting here is because I think there needs to be some type of clarity on why people, because you mentioned his politics, and why is it that his politics are so problematic? What has he been saying? What is his views? What has he said? Right.
So I think that's a good starting off point, and apologize for the background, folks, because I switched over to the YouTube stream, and I noticed, that we must have hit the big time because we got a troll.
Trolls.
Listen, let's make something really clear for folks who don't know who the Luqmans are. We're socialists, so we're not afraid of people who have said that they have been trained by Marxists. Go on with that foolishness. We adults over here.
At least they pay.
I mean, the rest of y'all don't want to pay no money. Y'all act like we ain't got a mortgage. Yeah. But okay, whatever. So there have been accounts that this guy, Grandmaster Jay, whatever his name is, has said that, and somebody posted that he said this today.
Right.
After the demonstration in Louisville, that he would work with the members of the Boogaloo movement, and I didn't see that. I didn't see the video where he said that. We did watch a 15-minute long video that this guy did where he did. I mean, when we watched the video of him, we said that he is a charismatic figure.
Yeah.
And that is a plus and a minus. But if military strategy is your goal, then the problem is he's doing too much talking.
Well, yes and no.
Okay, yes and no. So, some of the things that he has said, like, the thing about working with the Boogaloo movement. Now, if you don't know, the Boogaloo movement is a far right-wing, racist militia organization that actually wants to start the next
guys
civil war.
With the Hawaiian shirts.
Yes, the Hawaiian shirts. They have actually, members of the Boogaloo movement have actually been responsible for the murder of 2 federal officers in, I forget which state it was, a month ago. And you got white folks on social media blaming Black Lives Matter for the murder of those 2 cops when it was actually white racists.
I remember that, yeah.
Who killed those 2.
I think one of them was even in the Air Force or something.
Yes, they were. Yes, and then there was another group of white supremacists who were members of the Boogaloo movement who were arrested with a bunch of bombs and crap at a protest a month ago, and they were members of the and they were active duty. 2 of them were active duty members of the military. One was a reservist. One was in the Air Force. One was in the Army, and I think another one was in the reserves. So if he said, and again, we just saw that someone said that he said that. If he said that he would work with these people, that's ridiculous. That's stupid. That's horrible, and it's dangerous, and it's extremely dangerous if he said that. So there is a problem. There could be a problem with his ideology.
Right.
And I absolutely believe that is entirely true. I don't want to say however here because I don't want to erase how important that is. The issue is that there is a valid need for Black people to embrace armed self-defense.
Yeah, well, considering our history in this country, yeah. Considering what we've suffered and faced in this country, there's been a lot of stuff that this and I haven't read a lot of it, but people have been reporting he said this. That people now I know the video that we saw today. He mentioned some. He mentioned some things about. This was in Louisville now. And let's put some context here because I can't assume that everybody know the context. Is the fact that why what happened is the fact that there was this standoff. Between the so-called not fucking around coalition militia and the 3% militia.
Right.
So there was this kind of standoff, and then something happened. Somebody accidentally shot a gun off. Then all of a sudden now, you got people, especially on the left, saying, "See, this is why we don't need these guns," and this was counterproductive, and blah 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 blah, and men with guns and toxic masculinity and all this stuff, and like this, and And so, this guy had an interview and he was talking, some things about in relation to Breonna Taylor case, and that he knew some stuff and some stuff was coming out. And there was a whole lot of stuff. And you and I were talking about this, and we were saying, okay, look, what really is, what is this guy's agenda? Well, he said what the militia was for people who don't know. The militia, he said, was formed to defend the life of black people. He said that black people had been threatened by these so-called white militias and these alt-right militias and all. And so that black people need an answer back.
Right.
And they need an armed answer back. And they are the ones that's going to fulfill this role. So what happened is he also said when he was at Stone Mountain, he said at the monument in Stone Mountain, he said, now, you're going to see us in other places. We're going to make our presence known. He's been vague about how many people are part of this militia.
Right.
When he was pressed on by by the one who was interviewing him, and he said, "Hey, look, I told most of my people to stay home." He said, "I could have brought 5,000 people with me, but I told most of them to stay home." Now, you and I stopped there, and we said, "Well, one of the things about it is what we're seeing is that." He's not really, and I agree that he shouldn't, but you don't really know who's with him. You don't know the numbers that he has. And so what I saw was that, okay, all right, he's playing this cat and mouse game with the press. Black people with guns gets the press interest, as they always have. So he's using this to his advantage by putting information out there. Whether it's disinformation, I think some of it is. I think a lot of it is a ploy to be taken seriously. This isn't a drill team, as you see. So because he constantly stressed that that they're militarily trained. He stressed that that the members of his organization. That there's qualifications to get in it, so that you just can't buy a gun and show up with a black what they call it, tam.
Oh yeah, black beret.
Yeah. You can't just show up with a black beret and black leather coat and be like, hey, I'm here. Nah, there's something to it. And so you and I, just to put this discussion in context, you and I were talking about the problems that a lot of people, including black people, on the left, that the problems they have with this person in particular, and with this display of armed of optics,
right?
This black people being armed. In a country that's already oversaturated with guns, in a country that is gun crazy, that really doesn't have a culture when it comes to civility, so how is that going to help us, and so you and I were talking about this, and how much does his politics play in that? Now, the conversation was, and I think this is what we're trying to discuss, is should his politics be the all and be all for whether he is a beneficial tool for us, not only on the left, but in specifically for the black community. Right.
And I think that's the key. That's the point. I think, not who this person is, because I couldn't care. I told you how I felt about him. I think he talks too much. I'm suspicious of that. I think he's camera greedy. We both agreed that after watching a couple of videos, he loved being in front of the camera, and we've been around people like that, so we're real suspicious of that. We're not as suspicious of how fast this group seemed to have come together, because I was in Air Force Junior ROTC for 4 years in high school, almost joined the military. You can't get that amount of people together to march in formation just, by snatching some folks off the street who just happen to have a gun and get them to be that disciplined. And, that takes some training and some discipline.
Right. And to also, in this age of social media, to be able to do that without social media involved. You remember during the time of Ferguson, and all the so-called social media revolutionaries was up here like, we're going to kill some white people. And they on social media with the guns like this.
Right.
I remember the one incident where this girl, she used to do a lot of videos and stuff, and she was talking real slick and real tough, and even had a gun, posing with a gun on Facebook, and then they showed when the cops came and locked her up because of some threat she made, and she was crying. That's not their type of organizing.
That's not. So I feel like, and these are just a couple of images from the protest that happened in Louisville, and just to be clear about what actually happened with the person who got shot. With the people who got shot. Now, this is where I think that this is one of the pitfalls of the way they are doing whatever it is they're doing, which I think the problem I have with the way they're doing these demonstrations is that they seem to be doing them for the attention, for the media attention, and that kind of creates a problem because you don't have time to really plan like you should, because that's what happened today. They were, according to him, they were doing a safety check. They all go out, they get in formation, and they were doing a safety check while they were in formation, out in public. No, you don't do that. You do your safety check before you go out in formation in public. So that's why I'm like,
so number one, that's a chink in the armor right there.
That's a chink in the armor right there, and this is why I'm being careful, because listen. Ultimately, we do agree that there is a need for black folk to understand the need for physical self-defense. That really does not. I don't understand why that's even a point of debate with folks, but I understand that it is. But for real, there have been white supremacists who have been showing up to these protests. They've been driving cars into protesters. They have been showing up with golf clubs, baseball bats, guns, arrows, bows. And I'm not kidding. A bow and arrow. A white man got out of his car with a bow and arrow and shot someone in the arm with his bow and arrow before he got his behind handed to him by the protesters. We've seen images of these white militias or just regular old citizens standing on the side of the street intimidating protesters because they're fully armed and they're pointing their weapons at these protesters. So I'm not exactly sure what people who... I don't know if people believe that those folks are just there with those weapons for show, because all of our people who have been in the hospital or who have died because of those folks, because they have killed people. They have killed people in this latest round of protests. These people are not playing. So I understand the need to have, a clear political idea. You need to be out there for the right reason, right? We just talked about that with the moms, right? You need to be out there for the right reason. At the end of the day, though, when we're coming down, we're protesting, and the 3%ers show up to counter protest,
which we said before when they came to Stone Mountain. I told you that it wasn't over,
right?
And I told you, I said, now this is going to be a challenge to these other militias. especially the white militias, that they have to counteract that display.
And
so yeah, I knew that was going to come.
Yeah, and this is what they did, and they were outnumbered, so nothing happened. But there have been times when the racists outnumbered the protesters, and they have been assaulted. So at what point do we not realize that these people, they're not afraid to use violence and force against people who are out there peacefully protesting, who are unarmed? So what are we going to do? We going to throw a copy of Das Kapital at them? Are we going to throw, like, am I going to bring, the autobiography of Malcolm X and toss it at them? And that's not where we are in this struggle. So we recognize the need. There is a need among black people for us to focus on and be serious about physical self-defense and, if necessary, armed self-defense. And we personally think it's necessary.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can't, again, I think that this is one of the weaknesses. And I felt like, again, that, and I said this to you earlier, that I think that those of us in this struggle have to really understand that, it's really foolish for us to wait for all the stars and the planets and the sun to align in order for us to say, okay, we can that this person is beneficial to our movement. That and again, it goes back to our intolerance. Our intolerance of different points of views. Look, I don't have to listen to this guy. His political views I don't have to adopt his political views. But on the other hand, do I think that he serves a purpose, or should I say his organization serves a purpose?
Right.
And of course they do. We live, look, you're talking about a people, us, who have been in this country for 400 years, who have not only suffered enslavement, but also suffered genocidal actions on the part of white people in this country. Right. Lynching. Whole towns being burnt down. Racial pogroms, and these things in American history, man, just is what it is. And so it's not the first time that black people in this country resorted to arms to defend themselves. Right. So, again, we have to understand that there is nothing new here. That black people have done that in the past. Have went and got arms in order to defend themselves to prevent what could have been genocide on the shores of America had not somebody said, well, I'm going to shoot back. You know what I mean? Right. And so we have a couple examples of that. I felt like in the broader struggle of black liberation, and this is not to give any credence to the so-called distractors who always talk about black on black crime, but what I'm saying is that part of our struggle is that because our communities have been destabilized and undermined so much that now we're seeing the fruits of that. When you have over 100 people over a weekend shot and killed, or at least shot in Chicago, or D.C., when you have a certain amount, when Baltimore has 300, 400 murders a year and stuff, and people want to put that in the small confines of, oh wow, look at those people being up. But this is the fruits of decades of a sustained destabilization of the black community. Right. So we'll give you that. What we'll say is, yeah, we got a problem. Oh no, it's not the way you look at it, that there's somehow a pathology within black people. Right. No, but we give you that we have issues, and we have issues that need to be addressed. This is where I feel that the Not Fucking Around Coalition could be that tool, because one of the things he said, Grandmaster Jay said, he said that we want to be able to patrol our own neighborhoods, right? Now, of course, that's scary to a lot of people, because then you got people patrolling your area, your communities with guns, and if you ain't got none, you basically, it's just like a power dynamic. But at the same time, that could be worked with. That can be something that can be worked out. But again, for our own survival, we're not just talking about external enemies like the 3% and white racism and stuff, but we're talking about the internal threats that we have. It's like, our neighborhood's not being safe. Right. That black life is just as threatened by those who we live around, as opposed to police violence, state violence, and everything. So we got to be mature enough as a community to say, yeah, we got these issues, but it's not for the reasons you say.
Exactly.
Right. So what we can do is be proactive in saying that, yeah, but we're going to come up with our solutions. And in coming up with our solutions, no, we don't need you, Lloyd Lightfoot, to call Trump and have a conversation with Trump and say, yeah, send more stormtroopers.
Right.
We don't need that. No, what we need to do is to be able to get amongst ourselves, which may include the Not Fucking Around Coalition, but get amongst ourselves and with city officials and say, you know what, yeah, we got a violence problem in our communities. There's some people that got to be addressed in our community. And we don't want a heavy hammer, which what the police would come with, and the feds would come with, and have innocent casualties in what they're trying to do. We know the community. We know the people we know the people who's creating all this mess. So what we need to do is be able to come up with our own solutions. And yeah, and the reason why I'm saying it, if people out there think that this is somehow fantasy on our part, no, it's not. I have been a part of that. Yes. When I lived in Philly back in the 90s, and at the time when I was going to this mosque, I had just became a Muslim, and the mosque that I had became a Muslim at was what we called at that time. It was a very revolutionary, radical mosque, and so what I'm saying is these brothers was about that life,
right?
And what we were trying to do at the time, we was trying to clean up a part of Philly that was very overly saturated with drugs and violence and stuff, and the place where the masjid was at, the masjid had plans to basically really clean up this whole block and whole area, which was really, I mean, man, it was frightening. It was the height of the crack era, and all the stuff that go. It was New Jack City 10 times over. And so what happened was we were mobilized we were mobilized to help deal with that. But drug dealers ain't gonna just give up their territory without when you're making that kind of money, they're just not going to give up their territory. And so there was conflicts between the Muslims and the drug dealers. We had some Muslim sisters that were being accosted and stuff, and that had to be addressed. Now, what I'm saying is that I was there, as God is my witness. I was there at a meeting with the Philadelphia police when our imam, our leader, told the Philadelphia police that we are going to do something about this situation in our community with these drugs and the violence and everything else. And the Philadelphia police told us, I was there, he said, y'all do what you have to do. You let us know when to leave and not patrol, and then you let us know when we can come back. The agreement was made between the Philadelphia police and our masjid. And so what happened was, without getting into many specifics, but what happened was that there was some back and forth where problems were being taken care of. It was a main drug building that was on this block that was notorious for drug selling and using. And I lived up the street from there. And so what happened was that building was on fire. Nobody knows who did it. I know who did it. But that building was on fire. And in the morning when I was going to the masjid for my morning prayers, on the side of that building it said Allahu Akbar, God is greater. And what happened was there was an incident in North Philly when one of the main drug dealers, and this, I'm not saying nothing, this is public knowledge now, but one of the main drug dealers who would not submit, there was a car that rolled down one of these blocks, and it was a bowling ball with this guy's head in it. And
bowling ball bag.
Bowling ball bag, and they rolled this guy's head out, and there was no more drug dealing there. Now, I say this because the Philadelphia police never investigated. They never came to the mosque. They never brought nobody down to the station because the agreement has already been made between the Muslims and the Philadelphia police that you guys clean up your neighborhood the way you got to. So don't tell me what the state or what the apparatuses of the state won't do, because they can do whatever they want.
You know what I mean? Haven't they been?
Yeah, they can do whatever they want. They can ignore it. They can go after it. They can pursue it. Let me tell you something. The police is the biggest gang in any city, and they can do whatever they want. I was sitting at that meeting when they said, just let us know when it's over and we'll come back.
Now, that is really important. The point that you just made about the fact that the police can do whatever they want.
They do whatever they want.
Because they always talk about, we have to follow these rules. And we can't let you do this, that, and the third. Well, we know that's not true, because the police have been letting the mob do all kinds of stuff, and they only actually went after the mob when the mob started messing with the cops' money. That's really, and really when the bodies started piling up. That's, but now here is where I think that's a great story, and I know there are people watching who are like, oh my God, no, we don't want that to happen. No, we don't want that kind of violence, because you don't want, we don't want to meet that kind of violence in our community with that kind of violence. The point is, though, that we are fully capable of patrolling our own neighborhoods.
That's my point.
That's my point. We have people in the neighborhood who want to do it. We have people in the neighborhood who see the need for it. The problem is that people aren't trained for how to do it.
Exactly.
And we understand that this has been done with the Black Panther Party. They did armed patrols of black neighborhoods. Exactly. They were armed. There is a necessity for that sometimes. And that's a whole nother discussion about, how we want to deal with justice in our neighborhoods. Because we don't want to be as punitive as the system that we're trying to rescue our people from, that we're trying to liberate our people from. But
right.
There has to be justice. There has to be order, and there has to be justice. But we don't trust the system to be the ones to administer it. So then what do you do? Right? What do you do when you understand there has to be justice and order in your neighborhood, but you don't trust the system, the existing system that's supposed to administer justice and order, because they'll kill you just as soon as they will, look at you. So you have to have these kinds of mechanisms. And if we're looking at an organization like the NFAC, wouldn't they fill that role of training people, of providing, what I mean?
But this is what revolution is about. Revolution is about these type of things. Revolution is about, trying to find the ways to deal with your situations in the best that you can. There is no revolution, whether we talk about the Cuban Revolution, there's no revolution where there has been this perfect blueprint that Castro and Che and all of them got together and say, we're going to follow this to the letter, and then this is what we no there had to be some trials and errors. They had to be mistakes. They had to be people they had to cut off because they found out that they were somehow they were either enemies of the revolution or they were imposters somehow. This is what revolution is. So we got to get out of this fantasy world that there is this one size fit all way of achieving social, economic, and political justice. There isn't. In a country like America that whose playbook got every play in their book to achieve what they want. Yeah, they tell us the narrative that, we got pissed off with the British overtaxing us and blah 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 blah, and then we this and that and the other. That's the official story, and they're sticking by it.
Right.
But they didn't get this United States based on being pissed off at the British. So we understand that in their revolution, there was a lot of things that they grappled with in order to decide what kind of country they eventually want, or what kind of republic they eventually want. This is every revolution. The Black Revolution or the African Revolution ain't going to be no different. So it is up to us to be able to say, hey, look, we got some jokers in our community, man, that unless we get rid of them, we ain't going to be able to stabilize our community. So what do we do? That is up for us to deal with.
Right.
And so the thing of it is that Grandmaster Jay's politics does not have to align with mine in order for me to say, brother, you got the weapons and I got the problem. Or brother, you got the skill and I got the problem. Right. So what do? If they're military people, then they understood that they took the oath in the American Army that says, we will defend this nation against enemies, foreign or domestic. Grandmaster Jay said that the black people, the Africans was a community. Black people in this country was a community. If that's the case, then we have enemies that are domestic and we have enemies that are foreign. And so, you don't go meet the wolf as a sheep. You know what I mean? You don't go in here and the sheep and say, I think I could talk to the wolf. He'll listen to me. And the wolf tells you, yeah, come on in, we'll talk. I don't like the way they cutting down the forest. I don't like the way they doing this, doing that. And when you have that meeting, the wolf is the only one that's going to get up and leave. So, so it take a wolf to deal with a wolf. And see, in our age of toxic masculinity and in our age of all of this kind of stuff, we lost touch with reality. And we lost touch with reality. We lost touch that there are people out there that will kill you and go home and have dinner.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think you bring up a good point that I think we do want to end on. There's this idea that I think a lot of the resistance to the NFAC when they first emerged was that people thought, it's just black men with guns, and oh my God, now black men are perpetrating this toxic masculine image and this kind of thing. And look, as a woman who was a power lifter, I can handle a shotgun myself. If a man breaks into this house, I want him to be the one to meet that force with force, because that just makes sense. Now, if I have to defend myself, of course I'm going to, but because it makes sense that testosterone meet testosterone, that doesn't mean that I think that he is more powerful than me, or that I'm just going to go cower over in a corner, because if you come in this house, you have to deal with him and me and the dog. So I mean, if you try to come in here, you're going to have a fight and a half on your hands. But understanding what force is needed to meet what force, I understand that the image of not the image, that's not the word I want to use. I understand that there have been instances in this long struggle of liberation where men have pushed women to the background, pushed women to the side, and basically said, the only thing you can do is be in a role of support. Be silent and not be out front, and that can, let the men take care of the thing. I don't see that in these folks in NFAC. I see quite a few sisters with some pretty impressive weapons, and I see them pretty much on an equal footing with the men, so I don't think that's an issue. I think the issue that we have with the NFAC is that there's a need for what they are doing. I think that the way they are going about it might be an issue. Like, if all they're doing is doing it for attention, to get in front of the cameras, that's a problem. But that does not mean that they as an organization and what they represent is illegitimate insofar as black people needing to be serious about self-defense.
Well, one thing we've seen in our own experience in dealing with organizations like this and being members of organizations similar to this is that time will tell.
Right.
So right. If you're not sincere, time will tell. And so the thing of it is that we don't have to rack our brains and rack our imaginations to find out where they're, whether they really about. Time will tell. Because if you're not sincere, you're not going to last. And that's just the way it is. We've been in organizations like that. So, I mean, so I just feel like the real issue is, and this is on not just with so-called white liberals, but even in our own ranks. What the issue really is every time black people take it upon themselves to say, hey, look, we may have to defend ourselves with violence. We may have to meet violence with violence. Then all of a sudden, whoa. And so that's what I see. James Baldwin said this, man, if you ever get a chance to look at James Baldwin, when he was on the Dick Cavett show, he made it clear. He said, we applaud when the Israeli picks up the gun, and he said, anytime a white man picks up a gun and say, give me liberty or give me death, the whole white world stands up and applaud that man. But when a black man says and does exactly the same thing, he's treated as a criminal, as an outcast, and he says that an example is made of that bad nigga so that no other ones will rise up like him. Yep. We have not, in this society, the imagination of a Nat Turner, the fear of another Nat Turner still exists in this country. The fear of another Gabriel Prosser still exists in this country. We can understand when white people pick up the gun and say, give me liberty, as James Baldwin stated. But for some reason, when we do it, then then all of a sudden there's a problem. And what I'm saying is the fact that someone who hasn't served in the military, but who has family members, and my father and all them did, I'm the first one to say that, look, I think that should be the last resort for anything. But there has to be a deterrent. There has to be a message that says, look, our lives do matter. You're not just going to show up, gun us down in the street, and then everybody just, hold a vigil, and then the 24-hour news cycle move on to something else.
Right, and we hope that you don't do it again.
Right. Jeff Fort, who was the leader of the Black Peace Stones in Chicago, once famously said, when the Chicago police was putting out this threats against his group, and he said, there ain't going to be no killing without killing. Now, that sounds very, very harsh, and it is. I agree. Nobody wants to see human life, but in America, we ain't got the moral standing to sit up here and tell folks and to chastise people for wanting to defend their life and their life and their liberty. And that just doesn't mean against, like I said, external. We have we live in communities now, Jackie, where where black life is still threatened too. So, but that is our problem.
Right.
That is our issue.
Right.
And what I'm saying is that if we are going to be successful in this society, in this movement, in this revolution, because the revolution is this whole movement that we're seeing now, it's multifaceted. And so, you got the Black Lives Matter here that's protesting the police violence, but you also got part of the social revolution that's addressing economic issues, that's addressing the American hegemony and imperialism. But then you also got the dirty, deep down in the basement type revolution where it's like, hey, look, we are no longer going to be vulnerable to white and black and other people's violence.
Right.
We're not going to be vulnerable to that type of violence. You're not going to be able to just do what you want with our lives. And that is also an extension of Black Lives Matter. That extension of Black Lives Matter is we're not going to be your sheep to slaughter, and then all of a sudden you're on to the next news cycle, and I can't post a story about us being slaughtered because you're tired of hearing it. No.
Yeah. I mean, so, just to wrap it up, I mean, NFAC is interesting. I'm sure more will be revealed. You know how we say more will be revealed about them, but what they represent, the optics of what they do, I think the optics are still important. I don't understand the argument that, optics aren't important. Symbolism is extremely important. We understand propaganda in warfare, and I think the optics of a bunch of armed black people saying that they will defend, No,
go ahead.
No. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, Sean Selassie said that Turner and Prosser weren't just out to pose and posture, though. That's the point. And I agree. The fact that remains is, I don't know if these guys are just going to pose and posture. They haven't been tested. So that's the thing. We can't assume anything about them. I don't know them. So I don't know. Many of us, if we're tested, won't know how we respond. So I'm not going to sit up here and assume that I know them. I don't. I'm not going to sit up there and assume that they're not about what they say they're about. They just haven't been tested. And that's the thing. So, I understand what you're saying, Sean, and I agree that Turner and Prosser, history has attested to what they were willing to do. I say that again, time will tell, and to be honest with you, I hope that it doesn't have to go to that. But time will tell. But I won't automatically assume that that's all they're about because I don't know them, and I think that we don't want to make that mistake because see what happens is that social media can be a dangerous platform too. Because what happens is that what I don't want to do is encourage that by making somebody like a Grandmaster Jay feel like he has to prove something to me.
Right. I mean, like I said, look, this is not one of those easy conversations where we can just agree, yes, this is the problem, or yes, this is the good thing and what we should do. This is a real sticky, difficult situation. We can sit here all night long, which we're not going to do, and talk about, the need for political education and people shouldn't pick up a gun until they've had, sufficient political education. Keep in mind that before any type of physical whatever, armed whatever happened in the Cuban Revolution, people were being trained in the mountains for 10 years. We don't have 10 years. Do you understand? We're not in that position right now. People do need political education, and my perspective is that for people who are focused on political education, we all should be, but for people who are focused on ensuring that that gets done, are you going to not extend that political education to the folks in the NFAC if you feel like they don't have it? So that if they're going to be out there doing whatever it is they do, that you can be in community with them and be sure that they do have the political education? I mean, so the question ultimately is, wherever we stand ideologically on whatever it is, we are doing in this uprising at the moment, what are we going to do with the NFAC? What are we going to do with them? Because they're not going away. And like you said, time will tell what will come of them. But then when the NFAC goes away, then we're still left with the question of, what are you going to do with the need for black people to be serious about armed struggle? Because let's stop acting like the NFAC are the only group of black folks out there that's a militia with some guns. Because they're not. So, alright, I'm sure you were looking for some solid answers to the NFAC question, but we don't have any because there aren't any. We don't think there are any. We really don't think there is a yes, no, they're good, they're bad. People got opinions on who this guy Grandmaster Jay is. Over here on YouTube, Freedom of Movement said that that he's a Freemason. My granddaddy was a Freemason, and I don't understand it's this kind of stuff that we pull up. I'm not sure what that means in the context of the need for black people to defend our lives physically. So ultimately, so at the end of the day, we'll see what happens with the NFAC.
Yep.
We'll see if Grandmaster Jay is the real. Is that his name? I keep forgetting his name.
I just know Grandmaster Jay.
Okay. We'll see.
I know Samuel L. Jackson. He looks like
he does look like Samuel L. Jackson. We'll see. We'll see what comes of him. We will see what becomes of the NFAC. He claimed that there was some new information coming out about the Breonna Taylor investigation. We'll see if that was just all, bluster for the cameras from him, which that's what it looked like for me. But hey, what do I know? We shall see. That's really all this is about. Look, we shall see. We believe in political education. Everybody needs to understand why we're out in this struggle and what we are fighting. We need to understand what we want to replace what we are trying to get rid of. And I think that's a legitimate concern with some of these folks out here. But again, the question, we think that is the bigger question is, what are you going to do about the issue of black people needing to defend ourselves, our lives, and our bodies in armed struggle if it comes to that? Whether it's the NFAC or somebody else. So that's our show tonight, y'all. Thank y'all so much for joining us. Whew, that was a lot.
Yep.
It's always a lot. We never intend for it to be a lot, but it always is. And mostly it's always a lot because of you. Because you all are great in the comments. You engage with us. We appreciate everything you have to say, what you share. We love that you invite your friends and, tag folks and say, hey, these folks over here talking about this, come see what they have to say. We appreciate you if we disagree with you, if you disagree with us, because look, this is a struggle. We're not all going to see eye to eye along this road, but we got to get somewhere together. And those folks that we've got to leave by the wayside, trust and believe we will. But
that's it. Let's go.
So thank y'all so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate it. Share this video. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter, Luqman Nation 1. And consider becoming a patron if you like what you see and hear in Luqman Nation. Patreon.com/Luqman Nation. LUQMANNATION. And as always, my friends, our dear friends, take very good care of each other. And peace, but only if you are willing to fight for it. And we are now having to fight for it. Good night. All right, there we go.